Hey guys, welcome. So I'm live here on Facebook and also on what is this platform called? Instagram. So let's start our book read. We're reading the book called Outwitting the Devil. Now, where we ended last time was at page 198. And the devil had just answered a question. And what we're going to do, we're going to start from 197 so that we can definitely I'm trying to post on Facebook. Hello? Hello? Not much. How are thou? Okay. Oh no, just here about to start reading. I was just trying to post so that it's thing, but I realized that I've been practically locked out of my Facebook account. So I'm trying to figure out how to get back in. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. But I am. I am already streaming live on YouTube. That's where I stream. And I also am streaming on Instagram. But I needed to post it on Facebook. So I'm just trying to figure out how to do it. If I can't, already done the introduction. I'm streaming live as I speak. What? I am. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I am streaming right now as I speak. Just trying to post so that people can be reminded that club is on right now. Club, 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 book club. No, I'm saying I'm just posting so that people saying that join me on the medium. So I'm doing a post right now. I was saying that I had an issue it's because my Facebook, I can send it to my there. It's better. Yeah, my Facebook locked me out for some reason. Mm-hmm. Okay. VACCEZ. It looks like. They're downstairs right now. Ramika's in her room. No, I'm not whispering. I'm just doing two things at the same time. I have the club streaming live. I'm talking to you, trying to get a password so I can get into share. So if I did whisper, it's not consciously just multitasking. That's all. Why did it not send the code? Continue. No, I'm not irritated. I'm good. That's why I tell you. Oh no, you asked me why I'm whispering, so I was just explaining to you why I was whispering. So I was just telling you that I'm doing several things at the same time. I'm not gonna bother to post here because it's kind of thing. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, guys, I'm so sorry about that. But as I was saying, we are going to start from page 197 because the conversation from page 198 is kind of cut off so that we can get back to the same information, the same train of thought that we ended on the last time. You can listen in. So it says, question. I had no idea, Your Majesty, that people get into so much difficulty through uninvited expression of their opinions. But now that you have brought up the subject, I do remember writing the editor of a prominent magazine an uninvited letter of criticism, which cost me a fine position on his staff at a fat salary. Answer. That is a perfect example. The proper place to begin self discipline is right where you stand. The way you begin is by recognizing the truth that there is nothing for good or evil throughout the myriads of universes except the power of natural law. There is no individual personality anywhere throughout the myriad of universes with the slightest power of influence to with the slightest power to influence a human being, save nature and human beings themselves. There is no human beings now living. No human being has ever lived, and no human being ever will live with the right or the power to deprive another human being of the inborn privilege of free and independent thought. That privilege is the only one over which any human being can have absolute control. No adult human being ever loses the right to freedom of thought, but most humans lose the benefits of this privilege either by neglect or because it has been taken away from them by their parents or religious instructors before the age of understanding. These are self evident truths, no less important because they're being called to your attention by the devil than they are would it be brought to your attention by my opposition. Note from the author. Hill distinguishes our right to have independent thoughts from our unwitted expression of those thoughts. How would you apply this principle in today's world of blogging and social media? Question. But what are people going to learn upon the hour of emergency when they know not where nor to whom to appeal? Answer. Let them lean upon the only dependable power available to any human being. Question. And what is that? Answer. Themselves. The power of their own thoughts. The only power they can control and may rely upon. The only power which cannot be perverted, colored, modified, or falsified by their dishonest fellow beings. Note from the author. The only dependable power available to any human being, the power of their own thought, the only power they can control and may rely upon. You may not be able to control other people, but you can control how you react to them and their actions. This is an easy thing to say, but much more difficult to do. We tend to want to change other people when we can truly only change ourselves and how we react to others. Question. All you say seems logical, but Why must I come to the devil to discover such profound truths? Let's get back to the seven principles. You have already disclosed enough information to show clearly that the secret of how to break the power of hypnotic rhythm is wrapped in the seven principles. You have shown too that the most important of these principles is self discipline. Now, go ahead and describe the other five principles you have not yet mentioned and indicate what part they play in giving oneself discipline. Answer. First, let me summarize that part of my confession we have already covered. I have frankly told you that my two most effective devices for mastering human beings are the habit of drifting and the law of hypnotic rhythm. I have shown you that drifting is not a natural law, but a man made habit which leads to man's submission to the law of hypnotic rhythm. The seven principles are the media by which man may break the hold of hypnotic rhythm and take possession again of his own mind. You see, therefore, the seven principles are the seven steps which lead victims of hypnotic rhythm out of the self made prisons in which they are bound. Question. The seven principles are the master key that unlocks the door to spiritual, mental, and economic self determination. Is that true? Answer. Yes. That's another way of stating the truth. Now, we've seen that the conversation between Napoleon Hill and the devil is beginning to intensify even more. And the more he asks these questions, the more information that he has been subjected to release. Now, again, as I've been saying over the past few weeks, I want those of you who may be questioning if ever such a conversation really did take place, you may be maybe a little bit skeptical, but what I'm asking you to do is to have an open mind. Even if you do not believe that such a conversation could have taken place, I want you to take into consideration the principles that Napoleon Hill is trying to extract. And the principles, whether or not the story is more in a parable form or whether it was an actual conversation, is not the core issue. The core thing to think about is the information that you can take out from this conversation and now apply to your life. Now, we're going on to a new chapter. We're now at page 202, and this new chapter is called Learning from Adversity. Question. Is failure ever a benefit to man? Answer. Yes, indeed. Learning from adversity is the third of the seven principles. But few people know that every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Still, fewer people know the difference between temporary defeat and failure. If this knowledge were generally known, I would be deprived of one of my strongest weapons of control. Oh my goodness. Everything seems to be. Let me get back into Instagram. Okay. So, question. Is failure ever a benefit to man? Answer. Yes, indeed. Learning from adversity is the third of the seven laws. But few people know that every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Still, fewer people know the difference between temporary defeat and failure. If this knowledge were generally known, I would be deprived of one of my strongest weapons of control over human beings. Question. But I understand you to say that failure is one of your greatest allies. I got the impression from your confession that failure causes people to lose ambition and quit trying, and then you take them over without opposition on their part. Answer. That is just the point. I take them over after they quit trying. If they knew the difference between temporary defeat and failure, they would not quit when they meet with opposition from life. If they know, if they knew that every form of defeat and all failures bring with them a seed of unborn opportunity, they would keep on fighting and win. Success usually is but one short step beyond the point where one quits fighting. Question. Is that all one might learn from adversity, defeat, and failure? Answer. No. That is the least of what one may learn. I hate to tell you this, but failure often serves as a blessing in disguise because it breaks the grip of hypnotic rhythm and frees the mind for a fresh start. Question. Now we are getting somewhere. So you have confessed at long last that even nature's law of hypnotic rhythm can be often and is often annulled by nature herself. Is that correct? Answer. No. That is not stating the matter accurately. Nature never reverses any of her natural laws. Nature does not take away human beings' freedom of thought through hypnotic rhythm. The individual gives up his freedom by abuse of this law. If a man jumped from a tree and was killed by the sudden impact of his body with the earth through the law of gravity, you wouldn't say nature murdered him, would you? You would say the man neglected to relate himself properly to the law of gravity. Question. I am beginning to see the law of hypnotic rhythm is capable of both negative and positive application. It may drag one down to slavery through loss of the privilege of freedom of thought. It may help one to rise to great heights of achievement through the free use of thought, depending on how the individual relates himself to the law. Is that correct? Answer. Now you have it right. Question. But what about failure? One does not fail intentionally, with purpose, a forethought. No, one encourages temporary defeat. These are circumstances over which the individual often have no control whatsoever. How then can it be said that nature does not take away one's freedom of thought when failure destroys ambition, willpower, and self confidence, essential to make a fresh start? Answer. Failure is a man made circumstance. It is never real until it has been accepted by man as permanent. Stating it in another way, failure is a state of mind. Therefore, it is something an individual can control until he neglects to exercise this privilege. Nature does not force people to fail. But nature does impose her law of hypnotic rhythm upon all minds, and through this law gives permanency to the thoughts which dominates those minds. In other words, failure thoughts are taken over by the law of hypnotic rhythm and made permanent if the individual accepts any circumstances as being permanent failure. That same law just as readily takes over and makes permanent thoughts of success. Here's a note from the author. Failure is a state of mind, therefore, it is something an individual can control until he neglects to exercise his privilege. Can this be true? Has Hill convinced you failure is a man made circumstance? I believe he makes a compelling case. If you look closely at my life, my own success and failure in business, mistakes, missteps, I can claim that anyone is responsible. Can I claim that anyone is responsible other than myself? Will a personal inventory of your life yield different results? Hill has helped me place a different value on failure than I did in the past. Question: what part then does failure play in helping an individual break the grip of hypnotic rhythm after the law has been fastened upon his mind? Answer: failure brings a climax, which one has the privilege of clearing his mind of fear and making a new start in another direction. Failure Answer: failure brings a climax in which one has the privilege of clearing his mind of fear and making a new start in another direction. Failure proves conclusively that something is wrong with one's aim or the plans by which the object of these aims is sought. Failure is the dead end of the habit path one has been following. And when it is reached its forces, one leave that path and take up another, thereby creating a new rhythm. But failure does more than this. It gives an individual an opportunity to test himself, wherein he may learn much willpower he possesses. Failure also forces people to learn many truths they would never discover without it. Failure often leads an individual to an understanding of the power of self discipline, without which no one could turn back after having been the victim of hypnotic rhythm. Study the lives of all people who achieve outstanding success in any calling and observe with profit that their success is usually in exact ratio to their experiences of defeat before succeeding. Note from the author: failure brings a climax in which one has the privilege of clearing his mind of fear and making a new start in another direction. Okay, now we're going to continue with a conversation between Napoleon Hill and the devil. Question: is this all you have to say of the advantages of failure? Answer: no. I have barely begun. If you want the real significance of adversity, failure, defeat, and all other experiences which break up a human being's habit and force him to form new habits, watch nature at her work. Nature uses illness to break the physical rhythm of the body. When the cells and the organs become improperly related, she uses economic depression to break the rhythm of mass thought. When great numbers of people become improperly related through business, social, and political activities. And she uses failure to break the rhythm of negative thought when an individual becomes improperly related to himself in his own mind. Observe carefully, and you will see that everywhere in nature there's always at work a natural law which gives eternal change to all matter, all energy, and to the power of thought. The only permanent thing in the universe is change, external, inexorable change, through which every atom of matter and every unit of energy has the opportunity to properly relate itself to all other units of matter and energy. And every human being has the opportunity and the privilege of properly relating himself to all other human beings, no matter how many mistakes he makes, or how many times or in what ways he thinks he's defeated. When mass failure overtakes a nation, such as the 1929 World Business Depression, the circumstances is in the perfect harmony with nature's plan to break up man's habit and give out fresh opportunities. Now, here's a note from the author. The beauty of publishing this book now, during the current economic turmoil, is that nature is once again breaking up man's habit of presenting fresh opportunity and presenting fresh opportunity. Question: what are you saying? What you are saying intrigues me. Am I to understand that rhythm has something to do with the way people relate themselves to one another? Answer: that's that abstract, elusive thing called character is nothing but a manifestation of the law of hypnotic rhythm. Therefore, when speaking of one's character, it would be proper to say his thought habits have been crystallized into a positive or negative personality through hypnotic rhythm. One is good or bad because of the knitting together of his thoughts and deeds through hypnotic rhythm. One is bound by poverty or blessed by abundance because of his aims, plans, and desires, or lack of them, have been made permanent and real by hypnotic rhythm. Question: is that all you have to say of the connection between hypnotic rhythm and human relationships? Answer: no, I have just begun. Remember, while I'm talking, I'm speaking of the influence of hypnotic rhythm in connection with all human relationships. Men who succeed in business do so entirely because of the way they relate themselves to their associates and to others outside of the business. Professional men who succeed do so largely because of the manner in which they relate themselves to their clients. It is much more important for the lawyer to know people and to know the laws of nature than it is to know the law. And the doctor is a failure before he starts unless he knows how to relate himself to his patients so as to establish their faith in him. Marriage succeeds or fails entirely because of the manner in which the participants relate themselves to one another. Proper relationship in marriage begins with a proper motive for the marriage. Most marriages do not bring happiness because the contracting party neither understand nor attempt to understand the law of hypnotic rhythm, through the operation of which every word they speak, every act they engage, and every motive by which they inspire to deal with each other is picked up and woven into a web that entangles them in controversial misery or gives them the wings of freedom through which to soar above all forms of unhappiness. Every newly made acquaintanceship between people ripens into friendship and then into spiritual harmony, sometimes called love, or plants a germ of suspicion and doubt, which evolves and grows into open rebellion, according to the way in which the participants and the acquaintanceship relate themselves to one another. Hypnotic rhythm picks up the dominating motives aims, purposes, and feelings of the contracting minds and weaves them into some degree of faith or fear, love or hatred. After the pattern has taken a definite shape, as it does with time, it is forced upon the contracting minds and made a part thereof. In this silent way, does nature make permanent, dominating factors of every human relationship. In every human relationship, the evil motives and the evil deeds of the contracting individuals are coordinated and consolidated into definite form and subtly woven into that all important human trait known as character. In the same manner, the motives and the deeds of good are consolidated and forced upon the individual. You see, therefore, it is not only our deeds, but also one's very thoughts, which determine the nature of all human relationships. Now, question. You are leading into a pretty deep water. Let's keep near the shore, where I can follow you without fear of getting beyond a safe depth. Go ahead and tell me how this subject of human relationships actually works in the current affairs of problem filled worlds such as we have today. Answer. That is a happy thought. But let me make sure you understand the principles I'm telling you about before I try to show you how to apply them in the affairs of life. I wish to be sure I wish to be sure you understand that the law of hypnotic rhythm is something that no one can control, influence, or evade. But everyone can relate himself to this law as to the benefit of its inexorable operation. Harmonious relationships with the law consist entirely of the individual changing his habits so they represent the circumstances and the things the individual wants and is willing to accept. No one can change the law of hypnotic rhythm any more than one can change the law of gravity, but everyone can change himself. Remember, therefore, in all the decision of this subject, that all human relations are made and maintained by the habits of the individual related. Note from the author. No one can change the law of hypnotic rhythm any more than one can change the law of gravity. But everyone can change himself. Have you ever tried to change someone else and only been frustrated when you realize that you were not in control and therefore not succeeding? The law of hypnotic rhythm plays only the part of solidifying the factors which constitute human relationships, but it does not create these factors. Before we go further with the decision of human relationships, I want you to get a clear understanding of the subconscious mind. The term subconscious mind represents a hypothetical physical organ which has no actual existence. The mind of man consists of universal energy. Some call it infinite intelligence. Question. You say what you say may be true, but I still insist that you have me beyond safe depth of thought. Let us go back nearer to the shore where I can wade in familiar water. We shall go out into the deeper water after we learn to swim well. We started out to discuss the subject of how to profit from adversity, but it seems we have drifted somewhere afield from that subject. Answer. We have detoured, but we have not drifted. The devil never drifts. The detour was necessary in order that you might be prepared to understand the most important part of this interview. We are now ready to get back into the discussion of the subject of adversary, in as so much as Most adversaries grow out of improper relationship between people. It seems important to understand how people may become properly related. Naturally, the question arises as to what is a proper relationship between people. The answer is that the proper relationship is one that brings all concerned, all connected with it, or affected by it, some form of benefit. Here's a note from the author. The proper relationship is one that brings to all connected with it or affected by it some form of benefit. Take a moment to inventory your relationships at home, at work, at play. List the relationships that seem in need of improvement and keep them in your mind as you continue reading. Question: what then is an improper relationship? Answer: any relationship between people which damages anyone or brings any form of misery or unhappiness to the individuals. Question: how can improper relationships be corrected? Answer: by change of mind of the person causing the improper relationship, or by changing the persons to the relationship. Some minds harmonize naturally while others are just naturally clash. Successful human relationships to endure as such must be formed of minds that naturally harmonize. Quiet aside from the question of having common interests as means of bringing them into harmony. When you speak of business leaders who succeed because they know how to pick men, you might more correctly say they succeed because they know how to associate minds which harmonize naturally. Knowing how to pick people successfully for any definite purpose in life is based upon the ability to recognize the types of people whose minds naturally harmonize. Here's a note from the author. Remember Hill's definition of the mastermind: harmonious coordination of two or more minds working to a definite end. Question: stay focused on adversity, if you will. If there are possible benefits to be found through adversity, state some of them. Answer: adversity release, release people of vanity and egotism. It discourages selfishness by providing by proving that no one can succeed without the cooperation of others. Adversity forces an individual to test his mental, physical, and spiritual strength. It thus brings him face to face with the weakness and gives him the opportunity to bridge them. Adversity forces one to seek ways and means to define definite ends by meditation and introspective thought. This often leads to the discovery and the use of the sixth sense, which one may communicate with infinite intelligence. Adversity forces one to recognize the need for intelligence, not available except from success outside of one's mind. Adversity breaks old habits of thought and gives one an opportunity to form new habits. Therefore, it may serve to break the hold of hypnotic rhythm and change its operation from negative to positive ends. Question: what is the greatest benefit one may receive through adversity? Answer: the greatest benefit of adversity is that it may, and generally does, force one to change one thought habits, thus breaking and redirecting the force of hypnotic rhythm. Question: in other words, failure is always a blessing when it forces one to acquire knowledge or to build habits that lead to the achievement of one's major purpose in life. Is that correct? Answer: yes. And something more. Failure is a blessing when it forces one to depend less upon material forces and more upon spiritual forces. Many human beings discover their other selves, the force which operate through the power of thought, only after some catastrophe deprives them of all the full and free use of their physical bodies. When a man can no longer use his hands and his feet, he usually begins to use his brain. Thus, he puts himself in the way of discovering the power of his own mind. Now, for a note from the author: the devil brings in the other self here, revealing how he can use or how we can use our power of thought and our other selves to discover our true power and major purpose. Question: what benefits may be derived from the loss of material things? Money, for example. Answer: the loss of material things may teach many needed lessons, none greater, however, than the truth that man has control over nothing and has no assurance of the permanent use of anything except his own power of thought. Question: I wonder if this is not the greatest benefit available through adversity. Answer: no. The greatest potential benefit of any circumstance which causes one to take a fresh start is that it provides an opportunity to break the grip of hypnotic rhythm and set up a new set of thought habits. New habits offer the only way out for people who fail. Most people who escape from the negative to the positive operation of the law of hypnotic rhythm do so only because of some form of adversity, which forces them to change their thought habits. Question: isn't adversity apt to break one's self reliance and cause one to give up hope? Answer: it has that effect on those whose willpower is weak through long established habits of drifting. It has the opposite effect on those who have not been weakened through drifting. The non drifter meets with temporary defeat and failure, but his reaction to all forms of adversity is positive. He fights instead of giving up and usually wins. Life gives no one immunity against adversity, but life gives to everyone the power of positive thought, which is sufficient to master all circumstances of adversity. The convert them convert them into benefits. The individual is left with the privilege of using or neglecting to use his prerogative right to think his way through all adversities. Every individual is forced either to use his thought power for the attainment of definite positive ends or by neglect or design use his power for the attainment of negative ends. There can be no compromise, no refusal to use the mind. The law of hypnotic rhythm forces every individual to give some degree of use, either negative or positive, to his mind, but it does not influence the individual as to which use he will make of his mind. Here is a note from the author. The non drifter meets with temporary defeat and failure, but his reaction to all forms of adversity is positive. He fights instead of giving up and usually wins. Do you remember a time when you felt like giving up? but didn't. My co author and I expand this concept in our book, 3 Feet from Goal, with stories of perseverance, never giving up, from over 35 of today's top leaders, non drifters of our time. Question: am I to understand from what you said that every adversity is a blessing? Answer: no, I did not say that. I said there is the seed of an equivalent advantage in every adversity. I did not say there was the full blown flower of advantage, just the seed. Usually, the seed consists of some form of knowledge, some idea or plan, or some opportunity which would not have been available except through the change of thought habits forced by the adversity. Question: all those are those all the benefits available to human being through failure? Answer: no. Failure is used by nature as a common language in which she chastises people whenever they neglect to adapt themselves to her laws. For example, the World War was man made and destructive. Nature planted in the circumstances of the war the seed of an equivalent reprimand in the form of a world depression. The depression was inevitable and inescapable. It followed the war as naturally as day follows night. And by the operation of the same law, the law of hypnotic rhythm. Question: am I to understand that the law of hypnotic rhythm is the same as that which Ralph Waldo Emerson called the law of compensation? Answer: the hypnotic law is the law of compensation. It is the power with which nature balances negative and positive forces throughout the universe, in all forms of energy, in all forms of matter, and in all human relationships. Question: does the law of hypnotic rhythm operate quickly in all instances? For example, does this law immediately bless one with the benefits of positive application of thoughts, or curse one immediately with the results of negative thoughts? Answer: the law operates definitely, but not always swiftly. Both the benefits and the penalties incurred through the law by individuals may be harvested by others, either before or after their death. Observe how this law works by forcing upon one generation of people the effects of both the sins and the virtues of the preceding generations. In the operation of all of nature's laws, the fourth dimension, time, is inexorable factor. The length of time consumed by nature in relation to the effects of their causes depends in every instant on the circumstances at hand. Nature grows a pumpkin in 3 months. A good sized oak tree requires 100 years. She converts a hen's egg into a chicken in 4 weeks, but she requires 9 months to convert the egg of a human being into an individual. Now, for a note from the author: life gives no one immunity against adversity, but life gives to everyone the power of positive thought, which is sufficient to master all circumstances of adversity and convert them into benefits. Has nature created the current economic toil to allow us once again to convert our own personal adversities into benefits? Now we just ended at page 218. This week I didn't do a lot of self thought and description or interpretation of what is it that I would have understood, but I hope that in listening that you guys are able, you can pause and think and maybe apply your own thoughts to everything that you would have heard me read. Remember again, we meet every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, sharpish. And we're currently reading this book. It's called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And I thank you guys so much for listening. And if you have not grabbed a copy of this book, I'm telling you, I've been marking this book up. So I'm telling you, I am loving it. And I am learning a lot of lessons from it. It's one of those books that definitely you should grab a copy of and keep close. Now, until next week, you will see me. You can check my link tree. It's linktree/adorname. There you'll see how you can join our Facebook group. This live from the YouTube aspect will be shared to the group, and you are free to come in and join me, share your thoughts. Come on to my live. I love to have your thoughts and your feedback, or you can just comment below, whichever way. But until next time, likely next week, you will see me. So until then, remember, be great, be awesome, be you. You are unique. You're awesome. There's none other like you. No one can determine your true potential. Remember, we are all capable of taking quantum leaps. Anything that we believe we can conceive. Just remember, you are you to the second power. You are unique. So until next Sunday, be great, be awesome.